Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for clicking our video. My name is Josh here from Your Best Life Academy. And today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 different tips that are going to help you improve your test scores. Now, we tend to work more in the financial industry, meaning we help people with their insurance, investment, and mortgage licenses for whatever state they're part of. But the great thing about these 5 tips that I'm going to be sharing, it doesn't really matter what kind of exam you're taking or where it's at. If you're able to apply them, it's definitely going to be able to help you improve your score. Okay. Now, first things first, before I get into the 5, I want to try to encourage you guys to set yourself up right. Do you a favor by doing these 3 things before you take an exam. Number one, try to get a great night's sleep. Try to get the best sleep that you can get so you wake up fresh for your test in the morning or the afternoon. If it's in the afternoon, try to take a break, okay? Number two, try to get there early. If it's a test center or a location that you need to be at, you want to get there at least 30 minutes early. The last thing you want is to be frustrated with traffic or rushing to get there, and now you got to take an important exam, okay? And number three, make sure you had lunch, breakfast, a snack, or a coffee before you go in there. See, if any of you are like me and you get antsy or hangry after a while, make sure you take care of that before you walk into that test center, okay? So that way you can apply these 5 tips. Now, the first one is so underrated in my opinion. And I understand that a lot of us that are watching this video are probably adults, but I want to encourage you to do it anyway. Okay? The first one is take a deep breath. See, folks, I understand that we're living in a world right now where everybody's trying to get or grab your attention, whether it's your kids, your boss, your parents, maybe even your spouse, you know? But when you're going to take an exam, as important as the one that you're going to take right now, guess what? You are the most important person. So I want you to take that deep breath, walk in there relaxed, especially if you weren't able to do those previous 3 things that I talked about. If you weren't able to do them, taking a deep breath is such an important tool because it'll helps you to reset yourself. And I want to make sure you do this as many times as you have to. I found myself in the past taking an important exam, especially when I took my investment exam, and I was like 6, 7 questions in, and I would come across a question that I don't remember studying or words or phrases. Well, guess what? Being able to take that deep breath allowed me to reset myself, allowed me to refocus. And that's going to be so important, especially if you're taking an important exam like the one that you're taking, okay? So, principle number 2, read the full question. Now, you may say, well, duh, well, that's obvious. You have no idea how many times I've come across people that because they're so worried about time, because I understand you may have a time limit to your exam, but if you rush through it, you're not doing yourself a favor. So make sure you read the full question and make sure you read it twice. So many times we can get an easy question wrong because we're just so focused on reading it really quickly. By you reading it twice, it really helps out. Another thing when you're reading these questions, try not to overanalyze it. Don't try to look too into detail, all right? And the best thing you can try to do is try to even answer the question before you even look at the options. Because if you're able to even have an idea of what the answer may be, it's definitely going to be a lot easier when you pick your final answer because why? You already had an idea what was going to be a certain phrase or a certain word, okay? So here's an example from the insurance exam that you may be taking with your state. Look at these crazy words that you may see. The Internal Revenue Code, exchange and replace, insurance policy, annuity. Well, guess what? If you take your time and you read the question, it definitely becomes a lot easier to understand. So I highly encourage you, even to apply that first principle. If you read a question, you're like, what the heck just happened? And then read it that second time. And if by the second time you're reading it, you're not too sure, make sure you watch the last page. You want to mark it. And we'll go into why marking it is so important towards the end. Okay. So that's number two. Number three, identifying key words. Sometimes you're going to get long questions that may be designed to kind of trip you up a little bit. Well, guess what? Focus on identifying some keywords that are going to help you out. Most of the time, these are simple words that trip up a lot of people. Not, accept. What about when it's time to pick an answer? I'm just going to focus on the red ones, okay? Must, shall, may. See, if it's must, it's shall, it's always has to happen. Keep in mind, there's sometimes exceptions to the rule. So try to look for an answer that may say may or sometimes, because you want to keep that in mind. So here's some examples of some questions. See, when I see a question right off of the bat, identifying some keywords is definitely going to make the question a lot easier. So here, what do I see? I see the word not, and I see joint and survivor annuity benefit. So as long as I know what a joint and survivor annuity is, it's going to make the question a lot easier. And again, I'm looking for the not true. So I'm pretty much looking for the lie. And if you look at some of the options right there, some of them use the word guarantees, it uses the word may. So try to do your best to find the right answer. Here's another example. Another question that's a few questions long, a lot of information. Keep in mind, some of this information is not necessary. Look at this. These are the only words that you need to know. Long-term care insurer and agent lists updated. The rest of the information in that question wasn't important. They just want to know how often you have to update that list. Okay. So that's tip number three. Tip number four, read every single option. Okay. I remember in the beginning, I used to have that bad habit where as soon as I saw one question that kind of sounded right, that has to be the answer. Well, guess what? Some questions are almost right, but they're not right. So do yourself a favor and try to read every single one. And if you don't know what the answer is, hey, go through the process of elimination. Like when it comes to this question, I'm gonna apply the principles. Take that deep breath. Make sure I read the question twice. Identify the keyword, which here is riders or annuity riders, you know. And what is a rider? I remember riders an add-on. It's a benefit. Even though I look at these, guess what? The last one, it says the word benefit. But I'm going to make sure I read every single one until I find the best answer because a rider can also increase the cost of your payment, like number three says. But the purpose behind it would be more for an add-on benefit, not just to raise your price. So that's why this question, the answer is going to be number four. And the last tip that I have for you, so important, folks, trust your gut. You can definitely do it, folks. I know it may not have been the easiest thing to study, to have those sleepless nights, to say no to friends and family or neighbors, even because you had to stay in and study. So you put in your part. So trust yourself and do not go back to change your answers. I mean, why would you want to have doubt in yourself? As soon as you pick an answer, as soon as you're done with the exam, that's it, submit it. As long as you apply these five principles, and guess what? This little bonus one that I'm going to add on, it's a few extra ones. I call these the Hail Marys, okay? I mentioned earlier the whole, we'll talk about marking the question. Well, guess what? These are all fingers crossed situations. You know, we hope it works out, but it may not. And I want to take my time on these, okay? Because I feel this one, out of all of them, has helped me out the most. But this option or this tip is really based on you. It's on how well you're understanding the information. See, some of you guys may have seen my very first video that I put up where I was taking a simulator exam live. And actually came across these questions, and you can see those in the video. So you want to mark the questions that you don't know, and you want to write down key points and move on. Guess what? That's the great thing about these exams. You don't have to sit there and answer every single one and go on. See, By you doing that, not only do you exhaust yourself mentally, but you're wasting the time that you have, because I know, like I said earlier, you may be having a timed exam. So the best recommendation I can give you is mark the question, skip it. What does that mean? So this is a question I got. It was question number 4. The key word from this question was taxation of business overhead insurance or policies. At the time, I completely spaced out what it was. So this is what I do every single time in a real test. I'll write down number 4. Why? So that I can go back to it later. I know what question, and I wrote down the keywords. Taxation on BOE insurance, business overhead insurance. So that why? Maybe down the road, which thank goodness it did happen, you're going to get a question that may be able to help you out. 33 questions later, I ended up getting this question. And again, guess what the keywords were? Business overhead expense insurance, which is the same thing. I'm like, okay, so we're talking about number 4 and 37 are very similar. Then I saw the word not true. So not true. So I'm looking for the lie. So pretty much in this question, 3 options are true and one of them's a lie. This is why this I don't recommend for this to be one of the 5 tips, because again, you really got to know your stuff. And the test is based on, hopefully they throw you a question that piggybacks off of the other. Now, in my industry, in the insurance, investments, mortgage industry, that actually happens very often. So that's a good thing about it. This tip is you can definitely apply it to those types of tests, well, when it comes to the state. Okay, doesn't matter what state you're in. So when it came to this question, I was more familiar and I knew the answer was number 3. How come? Because I know these plans can go up to 2 years, that they're not limited to 6 months. So it's up to 2 years. So right off of the bat, I know that one's a lie. That one's not true. So guess what? If that was the lie based on this question, I knew that every other single question was right. So now I can go back to number 4 and I can read the options. Well, guess what? Numbers 1 and 4 technically are answering my question for number 4, the options for 1 and 4. So now I know the answer was option number 3, thanks to that previous question. So hopefully this tip helps you out. Here are some other ones. Now these last ones, they really are Hail Marys. They're worst case scenario. You honestly don't know the answer. The last thing you ever want to do is leave an answer blank. Because if you leave it blank, guaranteed you're going to get the question wrong. So hopefully these tips gave you a bit of a fighting chance, okay? So the first one, short question, long answer. Long question, short answer. And what do I mean? Exactly what I'm saying. If you see a short question, sometimes the answer is the longest one because they don't think you're going to pick that. And vice versa. You get a long question, sometimes it's the most simple answer. Another thing you may see, the longest, the most complex question is usually going to be the answer. Because why? They're using words that you may not be familiar or you don't use on a daily basis. So they feel you're not going to pick that answer. And of course, the tip that you've heard since elementary, if you don't know, pick B or C. Okay. I'll leave that up to you. Again, these are Hail Marys, these last 3 white ones. They're definitely Hail Marys. They're just meant worst case scenario, so you don't have to leave a question unanswered. Now, here's an example of a question. Short question. Guess what? The longest and most complex one, which is number 1, it actually ends up being the correct answer. All right. So that's going to wrap it up for the video for today. I hope that you found it helpful. Thank you so much to every single one of you that has subscribed, followed us on our social media platforms, or even shared the video. We definitely appreciate that. And for those of you that haven't been able to do that, if you can go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff, we would really appreciate it, just because we know that if you found it helpful, somebody else is going to find it helpful. And we want to give them the opportunity to be able to find this video a lot easier. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, all those things. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.